I even had a fantastic rebirth for Shaun on BNT, which was Attwood Unleashed. Probably completely inappropriate now, coming to think about it.
Hey folks, thank you to each and every one of you who've tuned in just now, and I do hope you find this video informative. I'm sure you've all seen Shaun Attwood's overly stimulated, maniacal performance the other day, and a performance it was. He excitedly clapped back at Sammy the Bull in a video on his channel. A 45-minute video, actually, to come back at what was a 45-second clip of Sammy the Bull. The entirety of Shaun's defence seemed to hinge on Sammy the Bull's use of the word met, and also on Sammy the Bull being a gullible fool who has fallen for the trickery of trolls. Now, I've never known anyone in my life who talks about trickery and trolling as much as Shaun Attwood. If you talk like that down the pub, I don't think you'd be getting the same reaction as you get on YouTube, put it like that. Sonia Poulton is a close second to using those words, but Shaun Attwood really takes the biscuit, and he seems that he's playing to one of the most gullible crowds on YouTube if he thinks that people are going to focus on his misdirection on whether Sammy the Bull met Shaun or not, rather than just the fact that Sammy the Bull has now said on the record that he has no clue who Shaun Attwood is, other than through his name-dropping of him.
I never knew him, I never met him, he's full of shit.
I don't think many people were actually under the impression that Shaun had claimed to have met Sammy the Bull. In this 45-second video that was put out of Sammy the Bull, Sammy's clearly talking off the cuff. He's responding to a viewer question, it seems. It looks like a casual setting, it's not scripted. And the question from the viewer was, do you know Shaun Attwood? Not, did you meet him? And Sammy's response to the question, do you know Shaun Attwood, is that he does not know Shaun Attwood and that Shaun Attwood is totally bullshitting. What Shaun Attwood is trying to do by focusing on this very small technicality of the argument that Sammy the Bull said met is sidestepping the actual point as it relates to Sammy the Bull. And let's keep in mind that the Sammy the Bull stuff is not actually the main issue here anyway. It's a much smaller point in a much bigger picture. And we'll address that in a wee second. However, Shaun actually shoehorned in the actual point at the end of this video, so it's actually not a response video to Sammy the Bull. It's a video that's dressed up as a response video to Sammy the Bull. But in the last 10 minutes, he actually addresses some far more serious issues, which is him being fired from BrandNewTube for his actions. Now, the fact of the matter about Sammy the Bull is that Shaun Attwood claims to have been his competition in the multi-million-dollar drug trade at the time, operating in the same territory, in the same market, for the same customers. According to Shaun Attwood, his foot soldiers were clashing with Sammy the Bull's foot soldiers in the streets. That's his words, not mine. That's his recent words, not mine. So he's now saying that he's had foot soldiers. It wasn't just wild man. He actually had foot soldiers clashing with rival dealers' foot soldiers in the street, which would suggest that there was some bloodshed, unless he means something completely different by foot soldiers clashing with foot soldiers than pops into my mind. But somehow this was going on without the knowledge of the other dealer, Sammy the Bull. You'd think Sammy the Bull might have actually just been told at the time that, you know, this English guy called Shaun is on the scene and he's cutting into our profits. His foot soldiers are beating up our crew, killing our crew out on the streets. He's defending his own territory. He's clashing with us. Sammy the Bull would have heard about that, but Sammy the Bull's on the record as saying he's got no idea who this guy is and that it's someone name-dropping.
I sent a message to somebody I'm friendly with in England and said, why does this guy keep using my fucking name like he knows me and he's trying to make a name out of, like he's a tough guy or something. I really don't have an opinion on this guy.
He's just not familiar with the stories that Shaun Attwood claims. That's the only reason he said, I've never met him. He just said, look, I never met the guy, don't know anything about the guy, doesn't make any sense to me, I don't want to talk about him. And if Sammy the Bull did know who Shaun Attwood was, I think now that Sammy has a talk show of his own, or podcast of his own, that he would want to discuss that, wouldn't he? You would think so anyway. Shaun says that his agent got in touch with Sammy the Bull's agent a few months ago as well, and apparently said that he's a big YouTuber and that he wants Sammy on his show for a conversation and apparently Sammy's agent said that Sammy would be interested in that. All this proves to me is that Shaun Attwood will not keep emails confidential. But other than that, it does not prove that Shaun was his competitor in any way. If Sammy's agent agreed that Sammy would go on Shaun's show, that is simply what agents do. They've not necessarily understood the backstory of what's going on here, and it's not necessarily Sammy the Bull that's okaying this decision by the agent. But even so, by talking about this, we're getting lost in Shaun's argument here. Nobody has claimed that they met. Sammy the Bull was clearly talking off the cuff, and there's no evidence that he's been fed misinformation by trolls, which is what Shaun Attwood claims. It simply shows that Sammy the Bull doesn't know anything about Shaun Attwood, and he's just making it clear that he has no idea who he is. He's never met the guy, and this is just some complete bullshitter using his name, and he doesn't want to give an opinion on him because that's how you deal with name droppers. Shaun also claims that he can read Sammy the Bull's mind. He says that he knows what Sammy the Bull is thinking from the twinkle in his eye, which is a strange claim to make, but apparently Sammy the Bull is just saying that he doesn't know Shaun Attwood in order to grow his channel. I don't think that's what's going on myself, but I'm not a mind reader unlike Shaun Attwood, so I will just go with the evidence, which at the moment is that Sammy the Bull says that Shaun Attwood is Shawnee the Bullshitter. Now, Shawnee the Bullshitter also claims that channels such as mine, I presume, who are covering the Daddygate situation, which let us not forget is the actual issue here, that we are covering this situation simply to grow our own channels. And a lot of people seem to use that as an insult. It's as if they don't realise that channel growth is organic, it's a function of YouTube itself, it's designed to happen, but he's using it as an insult. He's saying that people are only talking about him to launch a platform to gain subscribers. I do have a problem with this. It's a false argument. It's the kind of thing that's said by people who can't think past their own assumptions for a start, but it's also very flawed, and if you actually give it more than 2 seconds of thought, you'll see that. You'll see the flaw. Because to say that somebody's using a certain topic, in this case a self-appointed exposer of sex abuse, being exposed for taking advantage of a trafficked sex abuse victim who was dressed as a child, to suggest that people are discussing this to gain subscribers suggests that people can see into the future or control the amount of subscribers that they get, which is not possible. Speaking for myself, I am obviously unable to see into the future. I could never have guessed that I'd have almost 400,000 views in 2 months. I think that's amazing. I appreciate every single one of those views, but how could I possibly have predicted that? I make videos about this situation because I was unable to find that kind of coverage elsewhere, and because it was a situation that had been unfolding on YouTube, a platform which I love and am an avid consumer of, I felt it was necessary to break down the situation on YouTube. Starting a YouTube channel is not some sneaky, dirty game that people are playing, like these people try to suggest. YouTube's not just here for people with large channels, and anyone else that's doing it is just trying to grow a channel. But that's how these larger creators talk. It's as if they, first of all, it's as if they actually started from being large in the first place. They're acting as if they didn't start with only 1 subscriber themselves. Everybody starts at the bottom on YouTube. But these large creators, they talk as if they're the only ones entitled to gain subscribers and to use YouTube the way it's designed. They say, oh, you're just starting a channel to gain subs and views, as if that's not a feature that's built into YouTube. And it's a totally disingenuous argument. It's arrogant beyond belief. Every person is entitled to put their thoughts into a video. That's how YouTube works. I encourage people to do that. If you've got a problem with how YouTube works, take it up with YouTube. Don't just accuse people of being trolls utilising tricks because they've dared to make a video on their own channel. Anyway, so the way Shaun was talking throughout this entire video, it was as if everything that's been said about him is lies, and that was the thing that I noticed most. He only focused on whether he met Sammy the Bull. It was a total deflection. It was an absolute joke. It only takes 1 second to realise what he was doing. And I would think that only the most gullible, the most foolish, and the most ignorant people would miss this completely obvious attempt at misdirecting people. Another thing he said was that trolls are manipulating other creators, which you just couldn't make up, to be honest. As I say, imagine somebody talking like this in the pub. This is not the way that real people speak. The one thing he said that all the people have in common who've spoken out against him recently, the one thing they've all got in common is that they've all just started channels, or that they've all just started true crime podcasts. And this somehow makes them more susceptible to being fed lies by trolls, such as myself. I presume he's putting me in the category of a troll. Now, who is he talking about when he says this? When he says that these people are falling for the troll's bait? These people who've started new channels or true crime podcasts recently? I don't know. He doesn't actually have the courage to tell us who he's talking about, but we can only guess. I actually think he's probably talking about Billy Moore here, because it's the only person that fits into the category of either a newish channel or a newish podcast about true crime. So I'm pretty sure he is talking about Billy Moore, and I think he's also trying to put Sammy the Bull in this category as well, as he did say Sammy's trying to grow his channel by denying that Shaun was his competitor in Arizona, and he also said that Sammy the Bull is being fed misinformation by trolls. If he's not talking about Sammy the Bull and Billy Moore, then I will stand corrected, but who else would he be talking about? He might also be talking about Darren G, whether he considers Darren G to be starting a new true crime podcast, that is possible too. So, he could be talking about Darren G as well there. Darren G is also somebody that's spoken out about Shaun recently, as is Billy Moore, as now is Sammy the Bull. So they've all got something in common, and they would all fit in with the description that Shaun Attwood is attempting to claim here. Why he doesn't just say it openly is anyone's guess, but whoever he's talking about, he's saying that they're so gullible and easily fooled that they're taking all their information from trolls and that there's no truth in anything they're saying. And it's just not a very good defence. I would suggest to Shaun Attwood that instead of saying that people have been tricked by trolls, that he actually refutes statements that people have made, which he has not done, although he claims to have. Now, as if to try and prove or back up his own terrible talking points, that he's never claimed to have met Sammy the Bull, okay, we get it, he's saying that he'll pay Sammy the Bull's plane ticket into the UK. Now, Sammy the Bull's a man who's confessed to murdering almost 20 other human beings. I'm not convinced that he'll be allowed into the UK. I think Shaun probably knows this, but if Shaun Attwood is allowed into schools, then I suppose anything is possible. But let's just imagine that Sammy the Bull and Shaun Attwood did meet up for a podcast, and they did face each other man to man, as Shaun put it. What on earth would Sammy the Bull think upon hearing that Shaun Attwood filmed a vulnerable trafficking victim on her knees, calling him daddy whilst dressed as a child? Precisely recreating the sexual abuse that she experienced in her life, while Shaun Attwood sighed and moaned and let her unzip his pants, as well as taking multiple naked photographs of her in his flat. I wonder what Sammy the Bull would think about that. I wonder if he's aware that that's actually the controversy that's surrounding Shaun Attwood at the moment, not whether he and Sammy the Bull have met each other. Shaun's supposed rivalry with Sammy the Bull is actually just a side detail that Shaun would love people to think is the main issue that people have at the moment, but it's not. And I just wonder if Sammy the Bull would still have that twinkle in his eye when he heard that story about Shaun Attwood. I really do wonder what he would think. So this 45-minute video that Shaun Attwood put out, it went on for about 35 minutes in this vein, saying that anyone who comments, in fact everyone who comments on him, is a troll or a gullible fool. Those are the two options. He doesn't once mention the thing that everyone's actually talking about, which is the trafficked woman. But in the last 10 minutes of his video, he got onto the fact that he's been totally fired from BrandNewTube. Again, he doesn't mention anything about the video that he took with the trafficked woman, and of course he doesn't think he did anything wrong. But yes, he has been removed as a host from BNT, so now he has no official connection with BNT. He's completely unaffiliated. The founder of BNT, Mohammed Butt, has said that Shaun is of course free to make a BNT channel if he likes, but he is not officially affiliated with BNT themselves, and they go into great detail as to why this is the case.
On BNT, we have to look at what's happened, in what context it is, and how appropriate it is for us to go forward. So that's crystal clear for us from my side of it.
Now this firing of Shaun Attwood, it was announced on a video with Mohammed, who for all intents and purposes is Shaun Attwood's former employer in this situation, and Sonia Poulton, who's his former business partner, and from what I can tell, his former friend now. So both Sonia and Mohammed were very direct, more direct than I was expecting them to be. Although I do have an issue with Sonia's comments that people are jumping on a bandwagon for views when they talk about the Daddygate video. We've got that whole argument again, people are doing it for views, they're doing it for clicks. If people want to view and click on something, that's on them. But I will remind Sonia that there was not a bandwagon to jump on when I started talking about all this, which is exactly why I started talking about it. And that's exactly what Sonia Poulton wanted. She wanted there to be as little talk of this getting out into the public as possible. Let's not forget that she wanted to quell the controversy. She attempted to assist Shaun Attwood in getting his excuses out, and she didn't challenge those excuses. She attempted to dismiss the person who leaked the info initially on the basis of that person being intersex. And she also, of course, as we all remember, she said that people who were questioning Shaun Attwood taking the role of daddy in a video with a prostitute dressed as a little girl, getting ready to fillet him, people who questioned those actions, Sonia described as holier than thou.
As I say, a lot of holier than thou people are commenting on what you're doing, right?
Which is despite her now claiming to be shell-shocked at the gravity of his actions. So according to Sonia, it's an egregious act that she can't ignore, but anyone else who talks about it is jumping on a bandwagon for clicks. There we have more disingenuous behaviour. She also suggested that people talking about Shaun Attwood taking advantage of a trafficked woman could be paid disruptors. She didn't provide any evidence for this or any explanation as to what a paid disruptor would look like or would be, and why there would be a paid disruptor involved. So she's basically, in my opinion here, just doing exactly what Shaun Attwood is doing, and when he says trolls, she's claiming that there may be a conspiracy to bring him down. And this is even though she now claims that she was shocked by the allegations, she was horrified by the allegations, and that she had to sever professional ties with Shaun Attwood because of the severity of these allegations. But that's Sonia for you. I think the thing that annoyed Sonia most, though, is that Shaun betrayed her, which is something we've heard about Shaun Attwood before, quite recently, that he's extremely disloyal. But she said that Shaun publicly apologised when confronted by a former MP's legal team. That former MP apparently was someone that Sonia had accused of crimes that a court had previously already found to be untrue allegations. And Sonia and Shaun discussed the allegations without making it clear that a court had already found them to be untrue. And I believe this led to a lawsuit against Sonia and Shaun. But apparently Shaun made 2 scripted corrections on his channel on behalf of this former MP without consulting Sonia, despite their business relationship at the time and their supposed friendship, and she thinks that this really put her in the firing line alone. She also said straight up that an inappropriate video was exposed which Shaun Attwood had made with a trafficked woman. So she was very direct about that fact, and she isn't falling for Shaun's claims that it was a prank. She did say that she spoke to him on the phone when the video came out and that he insisted at that point that it was a prank. He also told her just to ignore it and it would disappear.
When I managed to talk with Shaun on the phone, he insisted the video was a prank and that we should ignore it and it would all blow over. I couldn't ignore it. It was contrary to what I have fought against and what I stand for.
Which is very interesting. It's an interesting insight into their conversation, I think, because it sounds as if they were discussing it from a PR point of view. But either way, she says in this video that she could not ignore it. She says that what Shaun did is counter to everything she stands for. It damages her reputation as someone who fights for the protection of children.
His behaviour and my association with him would be used as a stick to beat me with and would hinder what I have long worked for, which is the protection of children.
Now that's really damning to Shaun Attwood, that his reputation is now so toxic that people who, rightly or wrongly, believe that their reputation is of someone who fights for the protection of children, they believe that that is damaged by even being associated with Shaun Attwood. That is damning. As I say, she said that she was shocked. She actually said she was shell-shocked throughout the live stream that she did, the Prince Attwood apology live stream. She said she was horrified to find out what Shaun had done, and she also briefly touched on the fact that there were questions asked about the GoFundMe, and that people had been unhappy about the fact that it was running while the woman was working as a prostitute, and this was not made clear to the public when they were asked to donate. So this wasn't Sonia's main point, but of course Shaun likes to pick one tiny detail to respond to and ignore everything else, and then claim that he's rebutted everything. And that's what he did in this video. So as I say, this video is dressed up like a response to Sammy the Bull, but at the end he shoehorned in a response to Sonia and Mohammed. He didn't counter any of Sonia's claims, he didn't mention the Daddygate video, he didn't make any reference to it at all. He simply said that Sonia was mistaken about the GoFundMe, and that he has sent her receipts and that she should correct the record if she's got any integrity. It's a false argument from Shaun. Sonia's point was never about the GoFundMe, and Sonia never said that the GoFundMe was a scam. She's got nothing to correct there at all. She simply pointed out that the GoFundMe was a matter of public interest and that questions were being asked about it, which is true.
There have been questions asked about the money raised. Shaun and the woman promoted funds that viewers were contributing to, while, it would appear, sex images were uploaded to a site which advertised the woman's services.
And in no way does her talking about this affect her credibility one way or the other. Shaun even tried to claim that the GoFundMe was the main reason that BNT have let him go, as well as the fact that they got so many positive responses about him from people, so much fan mail about Shaun Attwood, that they felt that they were being pressured into taking him back. And they didn't want to do that because they don't take pressure from anyone. So basically he's saying that BrandNewTube are just being contrary for the sake of it. So he's literally trying to suggest that they were getting so much positive emails that that's why he wasn't taken back. I don't know how delusional you've got to be and how stupid you think your audience are for that to come out your mouth, but there you go.
We were continually bombarded again. On my personal channel, I got messages being sent. Again, obviously Shaun had mentioned to his YouTubers, his subscribers, that contact BNT with your thoughts on him coming back on.
No mention of the Daddygate video, as I say, and it was the clear reason given by both Sonia and Mohammed for Shaun's dismissal from the platform.
It was exposed that Shaun Attwood had made an inappropriate video featuring a woman who had been trafficked.
This was, without question, a horrendous, devastating situation that came about. With everything that it's about, Shaun's the first one to understand that.
He got caught with his pants down in a scandal that cannot be explained away, and he's been removed from his job at BrandNewTube. It's that simple. It's a story as old as time.
And to me, it was absolutely out of the question that I can bring Shaun back, and it still is.
But of course, Shaun totally misrepresented the situation to the point that it's just a completely false interpretation of what went down. Bear in mind, this was all done while laughing maniacally and talking as if he'd been completely vindicated. It was an insane display, it really was. Mohammed couldn't have been clearer that it was the Daddygate video that resulted in Shaun being terminated. He said that Shaun's actions were horrific, he said they were devastating, and he said that they contradict everything that not only Sonia stands for, he agreed with that, but also that BNT stands for as well. That's what Mohammed said. He also said it's completely and utterly outrageous that so many emails came through from people saying that the Daddygate video is just a little error, and it's not something that Mohammed believes is just a little error. He doesn't agree with the people that say that, and he never said he wasn't going to be pressured into taking Shaun back. He said that despite the pressure, it was out of the question to take him back, and the wave of compliments weren't helping Shaun Attwood because the people praising him were clearly not grasping the magnitude of the situation. That's my understanding of the statement made by Sonia and Mohammed. Now, in relation to the GoFundMe, all Mohammed said about that was that the funding side of things was up to Shaun to deal with, and that he needs to do the right thing. It was not a reason that was given at all for not taking him back. but it was presented by Shaun Attwood as the reason that he wasn't taken back.
It's up to Shaun what he does about the fund and what, as Sonia's mentioned, the raising of public funds and that. They need to decide to do the right thing and how people are upset by it. And whoever's upset by it, they should be taken into account. And that's for Shaun to deal with.
Because the problem with Shaun Attwood is he thinks he's a master of manipulation, but he's not. He constructs these false arguments right in front of people's faces, and then he proceeds to dismantle them. But it's all done so obviously that I can certainly see it when it happens, and I'm presuming if I can see it that everyone else can see it as well, apart from presumably the most very gullible people, which are the ones that are still watching his channel, and the ones that believe his troll story. They're few and far between now anyway, but, you know, he's maybe managed to get a few more now with this video, I don't know. I'd be surprised if anyone was convinced by this show, but you never know. Sometimes the wool is pulled too far over your eyes and you can't really see. So to sum up then, what we've been treated to is a video where Sonia, Poulton and Mohammed Butt roundly condemned Shaun Attwood's actions against all expectations, I think. Then we got a reply from Shaun Attwood. For some reason he had Ron Swanson in there as well. I think that was probably just Shaun's idea to get Ron on so that people attacked both of them, which is an obvious tactic really. But Shaun's video was dressed up like a response to a 45-second clip of Sammy the Bull talking off the cuff, where Shaun focused on one incorrect word, and then descended into Shaun laughing like an absolute nutjob, claiming that trolls are conspiring against him, claiming without evidence that trolls are contacting people who know him and feeding them false information, sometimes in his name, which these people are then running with because they don't know how to see if a social media account is real, and they don't know how to verify information. No mention whatsoever by Shaun about the Daddygate video or about the fact that the Daddygate video was the reason that BNT have completely dismissed him and why Sonia Poulton has severed ties with him. This is all about the Daddygate video. And that's what Shaun Attwood doesn't understand. He thinks the problem is people talking about the Daddygate video, not the fact that he made the video and then tried to cover it up. Somehow he's blaming other people for this. The fact that he made the Daddygate video and tried to cover it up while he himself claims to be fighting a war on paedophiles and exposing corruption is the reason that he's been dismissed from BNT. And that is the reason that he's losing allies left and right. It's part of the reason that Sonia says she's ditched him. The other part of the reason was his betrayal of her. And it's the reason that people are talking about him. And it's the reason that people have begun to look into his background as well. And it's the reason that people have found out that Sammy the Bull hasn't got a clue who Shaun Attwood is. Shaun can try and deflect. He can continue to cover up the real reasons for the video all he wants. He can claim trickery. He can claim trolling all he wants, but it doesn't change the fact that he's responsible for his own actions and his own destiny. Which is quite fitting because today, during his video, he said, with a bit of a sneer, people would get their karma for covering this. And I don't think Shaun Attwood gets to dictate these things, no matter how yoga meditation he is, but could we just assume that Shaun Attwood is actually getting his own karma right now? Because I think he very well may be getting his own karma. That's what this might all be. Now I'm going to leave it there, folks. I know I often end these things by saying we'll see where it goes, but you really just can't guess where it's going to go with this situation. It has been a bit of a roller coaster. Of course, I would love it if you could subscribe. That is what YouTube's all about. It seems to annoy Shaun Attwood and his friends. But if you found this interesting and you want to follow along, please do subscribe. Please also hit the like button, because liking's an excellent way to get the video in front of more eyes. I appreciate all of you who tune in, even the hate watchers, and I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next one.